All right. Good evening. Welcome everybody to Love the Game 24/7 with Coach Smith. Uh, Regularly scheduled live podcast on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and also live on Saturday at 11:30 Eastern Time, Saturday morning. Glad to have you with me this evening. I'm excited about uh, the playoffs winding down. We got past the wild card games this past weekend. Um, I grew up in Tampa Bay area, diehard Bucks fan, so I'm elated that I see my Tampa Bay Buccaneers still hanging in there. But I know they got a tough one traveling to Detroit this weekend. So a lot of exciting stuff going on with NFL. Um, Also, things that are happening with the NCAA. Also, we got stuff happening with the NBA. Joel Embiid lighting it up last night, having some consecutive 30-point uh, plus games. So yes, a lot of exciting stuff going on in sports. And so I want to thank you guys for joining Coach Smith and being live with me tonight on my Love the Game 24/7 podcast. So look forward to um, you folks joining me this evening. Be sure you share and let others know because I'm giving out some great information for uh, these young middle and high school students who are coming into an era in college recruiting where NIL is live and kicking, it's live and moving and breathing, whether we like it or not, or there's some things that you're good with, and there's some things you may not be good with. But hey, it's here, and I think it's a good thing for the most part than it is a negative thing. And so we just have to be sure that we gain all the knowledge we can because this is something new. This is not something that happened in our lifetime to be able to learn from. So we're learning on the move, just like we did during the pandemic, right? There's a lot of things that we hadn't had a pandemic in over 100 years, so none of us had experienced that. So same thing in a lot of different realms in our day and time, especially when it comes to sports because it's so so addicting, sports and everything. And we have to be sure we keep it in its place, but also appreciate some of the great things that are happening for these young athletes today in the world of college sports with the NCAA and NIL, and also the transfer portal. So I want to get right into something that I saw posting uh, last week. Oh, I forgot. I don't know. I want to see if my stuff is working tonight, but I'm not sure. But like I said, welcome. Having you guys. Thank you for joining. Absolutely. Lovely, lovely. Um, so, as I said, I want to jump right into something that I saw that was pretty interesting on social media, on Instagram over the weekend. Um, and it was the University of Washington Huskies football players, I believe, from what I can tell, um, that they were. I don't know if it was like a live that was recorded and they posted it. And what the uh, discussion was that I saw, it was the some football players talking or discussing Coach DeBoer taking the job at Alabama, and something that they shared that there's nothing new in college sports, So, but these things happen. Uh, but they were talking and explaining about how the coach they didn't know the coach was taking the job. Not saying he doesn't deserve the opportunity. Of course, he deserves the opportunity, and and so uh, I think some of the players were a little bit bothered by the fact that they had built such a family atmosphere, tight atmosphere, and they believed in the coach. And not saying they don't believe in the coach, but the players are just discussing how they weren't a part of. Uh, he didn't make them privy of the information or of the opportunity that he was being given to be high on the list for the Alabama coaching job. Of course, you heard rumblings on ESPN and Fox Sports and other outlets about him being possibly high on the list, since there were several people. The Oregon coach said he wasn't planning on taking the job, as well as I believe there was a Sarkeesian at Texas. He had already said that he wasn't planning on uh, trying to take the Alabama job or anything of that nature. So um, Coach DeBoer and maybe one or two other people were high on the list, but the players were just saying how even when the coach did finally um, get offered the job and accepted the job, he never came back to um, appreciate you joining me, Emmanuel, my brother from Canada. Appreciate you, my man. But we're discussing, the University of Washington Coach DeBoer taking the job at Alabama, and some of the players last weekend making it known that Coach DeBoer never, even spoke to them when he left. Um, when he left to take the job at Alabama, he never met with the guys to say, like goodbye, appreciate, everything you've done. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just going by what the players had posted on social media. And so, and it was kind of like, man, you know, I can see how that could be, bother um, these players, that here's a guy that got them to come to University of Washington to help him turn the program around. Um, and he never, met with the young man to let him know that he was interviewing for the job at Alabama, and that he was, um, uh, right, Coach Emmanuel. Yep, it's a great hire, but sad reality for the players from UW, to have to experience this. And so that's what happened. That's what they were discussing, you know. Um, and so this is a lot has to do with uh, why the transfer portal changes were made, right? This is a lot of reason why, or this is one of the reasons why that, hey, if a coach can leave and go right away and make his money, which nobody's against that. He's built um, that resume up for himself to be able to get, ideal job like Alabama, and hats off to him, more power to him. However, to me, if you want to have a legacy of of being a coach um, who cares a lot about his players, and I'm not saying he doesn't care about the guys or anything. Hopefully, he made it right with them in some way, somehow. But I do think that's not good on his part to not go back and at least acknowledge the guys and let them know that, hey guys, I got this job. It's an ideal job. And we as players, we understand stuff like that, man. Nobody's like, man, coach, yeah, you'd be rooting for him, you know, because you have that relationship with a coach, and a coach has built that relationship of trust in a program, but then the guys feel like, hey, you're not trustworthy. Um, and so to me, that if that is actually what happened, you know, I don't want to say necessarily shame on him, but hey, he could have done a better job, I think, in handling that situation if he didn't at least acknowledge the young men and let them know. I'm sure he's told them that he appreciate what they have done at the program, since they were in the playoffs and the national championship. But then, of course, he got thrusted into flying probably out to Alabama right away to interview for this job. But you got to be a person of integrity. If you're gonna, I don't want to jump too far ahead of myself. I got some notes that I took, for this discussion, that I don't want to, leave out. But like I said, I saw a lot of comments concerning the UW coach leaving for the Alabama head coaching job, right? And like I said, after some players made it known, um, and you have to be careful um, that you don't take things personal, and that's on both ends with coaches. They can't take things personal in their decisions with student athletes, and student athletes can't take things personal with coaches. Everybody's trying to, you know, um, leave their mark, right? Leave their imprint on something, right? And so, um, these things happen. Like you say, it's the nature of, like Coach Emmanuel said, who's joining us tonight. It's the other side of the business, in a lot of things, not just sports. Um, and my thing is, that coaches, you can't hold student athletes to a standard and they don't uphold it themselves. So that's my thing. Okay. So, coaches, they give a lot of coach speak about, hey, integrity, blah, 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 as they're building a program and helping build their resume. But, coaches can't hold student athletes to a level of integrity if they are not going to uphold that themselves. That because they've been selling that whole thing, to build this program up, right? Not just coach the boy at UW, all coaches that, whether it's high school, whether it's college, um, become a harsh reality at the next level when you go from high school to college because there's a lot of money involved. And these games are on TV, so there's a lot of monetary opportunities for the NCAA and the college and the university, and now even with NIL for the student athlete. You know, we fought for years to allow players to get paid for their name, image, and likeness, right? So if you're going to be a coach and you're going to sell and promote and push integrity, you got to be a coach. So even in this situation, I would have to say, it's not a good thing because you never know for Coach DeBoer to do what he did for not acknowledging the guys or at least going and talking to them and saying, hey, this is what's going on. Let me just keep you guys up before you hear it in the streets. I want you to hear it from me, from the coach, because I want to make sure I'm a coach who stands by integrity. Just like you would want a young man that if you are at that program, because trust me, when he goes to Alabama, he's going to want those guys. And these guys from Alabama are seeing what happened with these guys posted at UW. There's a young man from my hometown, Black, the tight end for Alabama, has already, put himself in the portal to leave Alabama. And I know that he was a main part of their offense as a starting tight end. And I saw where his name was in the portal. And he's a hometown kid from my hometown in St. Petersburg, Florida, from my high school, Lakewood High School. So, it's kind of interesting on why he put himself in the portal. But like I said, that coach is going to go there and want to sell integrity, right? But now out here on social media, because everything's on social media now, right? And he's seeing these Alabama kids are seeing where the UW players are saying, "Hey, man, he never even told us that he was, you know, leaving UW, or when he got the job, he never even met with us to just say, hey, man, see you guys later. I wish you all the best." You can't sell that stuff and then you're not going to follow it, right? But hey, like we said, it's a harsh reality. And so parents and student athletes, you have to start preparing your young men and your young ladies for things like this. So not that they're necessarily shocked, but hey, it affects everybody, but it won't affect you in a negative way when something like this does happen to you, right? So just make sure you look for those types of things when you're going through the recruiting process, right? Make sure you see a coach that he's upholding the standard, he's holding his student athletes to it, and so don't get mad when your student athletes hold you to it when you do something that goes against what you've been promoting, what you've been pushing for them to follow. So that's the issue, right? So in student athletes, some comments were like, "Oh, they're soft. They're not like," and I don't think it's necessarily, being soft. You know, of course you have some of that, but I don't think that's the case. When some students decide to transfer, right? A lot has to do when students decide to transfer. A lot has to do with how they were raised in their home, right? Same thing as a coach. You don't know how that coach was raised and how he's dealing with and handling some of these student athletes, these kids. So, I don't think it's always necessary that somebody's soft. I think depending upon how somebody was, how some of us were raised, you may not have the luxury of having that example or somebody teaching you like what we're doing with Love the Game 24/7, with our digital course and things that we're going to be bringing, and the one-on-one opportunities that you'll be able to have with me, Coach Smith, and Garrett Blair with GMB Sports Management, who's my partner with Love the Game 24/7 and GMB Sports Management. So, these are some things that we want to help you know, um, mentor and teach, and help some of those single parents out there that don't have the help. And some parents, whether you're a single parent or not, you still need the help. So we have to make sure that before we start saying some people are soft, you're not really sure, you don't really know how somebody was raised, okay, in their home, and or the type of coach they had growing up in little league and high school, right? So sometimes it's a letdown, to some student athletes. And sometimes there's a lot of things that going on behind the scenes that a lot of us don't know. And so for some of us who played college sports, we know that sometimes there's some things going on, that there's some legitimate reasons why some kids may want to transfer, right? Um, because sometimes, you might, like I said, you don't know what type of high school coach they may have had. You don't know how that head coach at that college was raised and how he deals with certain things that they may feel like shrug it off. It's no big deal when it probably is a big deal. So you just don't know how these things can go. So we have to train our young people now early, right, and build them up, right? Because you may have a coach who ruled or coach using fear tactics, because that's an issue with some coaches. Sometimes they want to use fear tactics to try to get things out of a kid, as opposed to having some better communication skills, which that's definitely an issue. Some kids come from homes where communications are not all that great, and some may do, or but none of us are perfect. So you may have sometimes where coaches do use these tactics, like fear tactics. Was the coach not a good communicator, right? Maybe that's why this student athlete is deciding to transfer. I remember Ryan Clark on the Pivot shared about Coach Nick Saban, where he said Nick Saban like would just blast him, you know, all the time, but and go off on him, and and really just lean into him. And Ryan said, he kind of took it a certain type of way, like, man, coach always yelling at me. It ain't, it's not, I'm not making mistakes. I'm hustling. I'm busting my tail, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I make some mistakes, but I'm not making that kind of mistakes for coach to be yelling at me like that. So I'm not sure what's going on. But it took Ryan Clark, to go in to Coach Saban and say, Coach, hey, what's the deal? Because maybe Ryan Clark was raised a certain way. Hey, I'm respecting my elders. I respect my coaches. I respect those who are older than me. But he probably was also raised to be taught like, hey man, go in and talk to the coach. He never had a high school coach that taught that, or was that type of way. Maybe communicated good, and he's probably figuring like, man, what's going on with Coach Saban? Getting on me like that. But he took it upon himself to go in and have a meeting with Coach Saban and say, hey, Coach, hey, you're yelling at me. You're getting on me. I know I hustle, blah blah blah. But then but Coach Saban communicated, because I'm sure he did that to eventually get Ryan to come in and talk to him and break it down to him as to why he was using that certain tactic. But sometimes you have to be careful as coaches when you use a certain tactic, that you could mess a kid up thinking, you know, he's being a problem. But I always coach kids and tell them, when a coach stops talking to you, that's when you need to be concerned. But as long as a coach is talking to you and getting on you, that means he believes in you. I don't care how good or bad a coach is, we all recognize talent, right? So when a coach stops talking to you, that's when you need to be concerned. However, as I said, Ryan went in to talk to Coach Nick Saban and was asking like, "Hey, Coach, why are you getting on me like you are?" Blah blah blah. And Coach Saban said, "Because I know you're a type of young man that I can yell at and get on, and it's not affecting you. It's gonna make you work harder. But you're an example. You're one of the best examples that I have, and I know if I lean on you, because I can't yell at Tommy over here and Greg like I'm yelling at you, right? But it made him come in and talk, so that allowed Coach Saban to break it down to him and say, "Hey man, you're my leader, and I know if I can yell and get on you, the other guy's gonna be wondering like, man, I don't want Coach yelling at me, because hey, we all know Ryan busting his tail and work harder than anybody out here. So man, if he's yelling at Ryan, man, I don't even want him to wait for him to get yelling at me, right? Because he knew Ryan could take it. He knew Ryan had a personality that would come in and talk to him. Okay. But also, Nick Saban was a type of coach who's a man of integrity that explained and communicated well to Ryan as to what was going on. So those are the kind of things that you want out of a coach. And there's a lot of coaches who don't know how to communicate well like that, right? They know how to yell at you and get on you, okay? But some coaches need to sometimes don't always wait for that student athlete to come. You might need to pull that guy aside one day when you got a little moment and say, "Hey, come by my office," because you don't want to, this kid might feel like he's like Ryan did, like, man, I'm disappointed in my coach. Because in some of our homes, people who look like me and you, some of our homes, man, we're taught certain ways. I'm not saying other people aren't taught those same things, but I know in my community, it was always taught. My era, man, you don't disrespect or talk back to a coach, right? And in some instances, you were told, man, don't you even don't don't even go in and talk to him, you know, and that's not good teaching. The best teaching is, hey, allow your kid to, like I taught my kids, man, you don't fear any man. You go in and talk, and you talk with respect, and let them know how you're feeling and why you're feeling a certain type of way or what's going on. Just like Ryan Clark shared on his pivot show, talking about that and discussing that. And then once Ryan understood, then he could play that role along with Coach Saban and take Coach leaning on him, right? So, like I said, it's not always about a kid being soft. Sometimes it's about what type of coaching did that kid come up under or didn't come up under, when they were playing high school football as they prepared to move forward. But like I said, fear tactic stuff doesn't work. That's not good, right? That's not good communication. You want to be in a place where they communicate well, because it's going to affect your play at some point. I don't care how good you are. A coach is leaning on you for no reason. Thankfully, Coach Saban was the type of guy that when Ryan Clark came in to speak to him, he broke things down to him and said, "Because you're the type of leader, I know you can take it, and it's going to cause those other guys to make sure they play and do right, because you work hard, and everybody knows it. Even your teammates know it." So thankfully, Ryan Clark had a guy like Nick Saban, and there's many coaches like that, but we have a lot more than you think that don't do a good job of communicating, because they didn't grow up in a house where there was good communication, right? We know that, you know. So these are just some examples, like I said, some student athletes grew up watching, you know, and learning from, some good and some bad. So we don't know, right? And so the same, like I said, could be said about how about these coaches, and why they do or coach the way they do, right? And the best thing to me that Coach DeBoer could have done was to speak to his UW players, right, that helped him be successful, to get, to be able to get the Alabama coaching job, right? A lot had to do with those guys. So out of respect, like I said, you're gonna talk that talk, you got to walk it as well as a coach, right? Um, because you're in a position as a coach where it's very influential, and players, male or female, respect their coaches, whether they're male or female coaches, and so you're in a position to be effective, and you always want to be a coach, and you want to be in a program, you know, that has some effective communication that's going to allow to bring the best out of you, right? And you'll be able to bring the best out of that coach. But those guys helped him get that job and turn that program around, right? So that way, you totally, Coach DeBoer could have totally covered his bases, right? He's not wrong for taking the job. Nobody said that. He's not wrong for taking that job. He deserves it for what he was able to do at UW, right? Um, but how he mishandled being a positive impact further beyond, you know, UW and going to Alabama, to these young men's lives, he has a responsibility to do that. I feel. All right. You can put your comments in and tell me what you think. But I know he had a responsibility to do that, and to give those young men that respect that they deserve after helping him be successful. It goes both ways. We help each other, right? It's not one sided. Okay. So, and these are young men, impressionable. They're still, my wife's a nurse. She's been a registered nurse for over 30 years, and she always tells me that that front part of the brain still hasn't totally developed for boys, for males, until like sometimes beyond age 21, 22. So that's why sometimes we see some of us, and I know I did some crazy stuff growing up, right? Even at in my early 20s. And and she's always said, hey, when she sees stuff, she's not surprised, because there's still some young men. It's not necessarily that they're immature. It's just that that part of the brain, that part that reasons, sometimes doesn't always reason well, because it's not totally developed into their maybe mid 20s and beyond. So sometimes there are some young men who are mature, or that part of the brain has developed for them, right? But for the most part, what science tells us, we always say women mature a little bit faster than boys, and it's not necessarily that they mature, it's just that part of the brain probably has developed, right? That gives them better reasoning skills than males for the most part, right? So if if she said science has proven that, and we know that, because we can all, some of us boys, we grew up, our moms who raised a bunch of boys, we always fighting and not thinking about the consequences of how we could get hurt or hurt somebody else. Um, so we have to take those things in consideration. There's a lot going on with these young men's lives, and have opportunities, especially now with NIL and all those different things that are a part of college sports now, for both men and women athletics. Um, and so, like I said, the best thing Coach DeBoer could have done was speak to those young men. And the UW players aren't wrong for sharing their frustration, and they are not wrong for deciding to be in the transfer portal or getting NIL opportunities. No student athlete is wrong for using these options, right? I'm a huge advocate for the NIL. Oh, definitely, it could be better, of course, and I think it will eventually, and some of this stuff will work itself out. You know, but like I said, the Coach DeBoer's mishandling um, of situations like this that we've seen over the years in college sports is why the rules of the transfer portal are needed, right? To be changed and adjusted, right? To help give the student athletes some leverage back, right? They deserve some leverage. This coach has got a great job and a great opportunity to help himself and his family and career, and the same should be given to these student athletes as well, right? We have adult coaches, okay, that sometimes would misuse the portal. We know that. In the history, you go back in history, the reason why we needed to change some rules, sometimes coaches will hold kids and not allow them to transfer when they know they should be allowing them to transfer because things aren't working out. And sometimes coaches, I know back in my day, sometimes coaches wouldn't release a kid, being a little bit vindictive or whatever the reason is, why, thinking that maybe they can, um, not allow that kid to go play somewhere. Those rules needed to be changed with the transfer portal, and we know that those of us who play college sports, who know how sometimes that transfer portal used to be misused, okay, and how coaches could be, um, have leverage over a student athlete and not let them transfer, and then sometimes these student athletes would have to sit out a year, and miss playing, which I didn't think was always fair, you know. Um, And we got to be honest. Sometimes, you get all caught up in the hype of being recruited, and you may not always make the best decision. And that's why Love the Game 24/7 is trying to come alongside student athletes and the parents to help them as much as possible. You got to make that decision, but we want to give you as much information, as much knowledge, right, and wisdom to help you make a great decision to where maybe you don't have to transfer, you know. But this is why we do have the transfer portal. This is why we have some of the things that we have, and we have a time in our society where these kids aren't going to put up with foolishness, right? Because really they learn from us. Because I think in our generation we put up with a lot of stuff, and we have taught our kids not to put up with certain things. But there's a way to go about doing things because it's not always smart to transfer. Sometimes you do need to go like Ryan Clark did and go in and have that conversation. And when you've tried to do everything you can and being respectful, and parents need to be, aware of these things as well, right? So, and you need to be involved in some ways, but you also got to let your young men grow up to be young men and let your young ladies grow up to be young ladies and handle some business themselves. But however, you still need to be alongside them, trying to help give them, some advice, but also don't let them get mistreated. You know, if there's some mistreatment going on, some unfairness, and then sometimes as a parent, you may need to step up, and get more involved. But you got to also allow them and encourage your young men and your young ladies to step up for themselves and be advocate for themselves and not tolerate some things. And coaches have to be sure that if we're gonna say we want to have a standard of integrity and this and that, we got to make sure that we're following it and continue to be examples of that. You just can't throw that away just because you got your opportunity and you're just like, oh, throw it in the wind and don't think that you should um, still, you know, follow that standard that you set because he may run into some problems and some issues at Alabama where some guys may not want to stay there after what these guys at UW shared on social media, and rightfully so. Maybe they may not trust him. You know, so he's going to have to do some cleanup for that if that's what he did and didn't talk to those. Gonna have to do some cleanup at Alabama, and rightly so, right? I know if I was at Alabama, that would be one of the first things that I'll be wanting to talk to him about. Like, hey, if this is true, coach, I have some concerns. Not that you're a bad guy or anything like that. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has, have a right to correct their mistake. You know, but I know if I'm a leader on that team in Alabama, that's what I'm talking. And that's why I think, where the transfer portal and NIL opportunities can come in to help, make sure, you don't want to don't get crazy with your leverage, right? There's a line you don't want to cross, right? With that leverage, you always want to be respectful, right? But you also want to be sure that um, you're also looking out for, especially if you're a captain or something like that on that team. You want to be sure that, hey, it's not just about me, but it's about my teammates, right? It's about the future of this program, those who coming behind us. If that coach is still going to be there for years to come, and hopefully he has some great success, but he has some cleanup that he needs to do, with that. And so that's why I said, when things like this happen, like what the UW coach did, this is why the transfer portal and things like that are you know, because it's like a punch in the face to these guys, right? You know, it's like a punch, it's like a punch in the face, and they don't deserve, being punched in the face or feel like they've been punched in the face by the coach or let down because he didn't uphold that standard of integrity that he had been selling to those kids, and they went out there and fought for him and got him in the national championship game opportunity, right? And so I just want to share that part and just also just get into what like I said, why it's important that we have this transfer portal when things like this do happen, right? It's also to try to alleviate from things like this happening. But as I said, there were times, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, and during my time growing up in high school and playing college sports, that coaches could use this, to I felt at times from stories that I've heard from guys that I grew up with and maybe fell into that where, or seeing or even reading about it, knowing, it was in the paper. We didn't have social media; we had the newspaper, right? Or you had talk between because you had friends at these schools, and you talk to each other, and you're hearing like, yeah, man, coach, man, won't even holding me back from won't release me to transfer to another school. He's trying to talk me into staying here, and that's cool. And sometimes the coaches went ahead and released kids for the most part, but sometimes they didn't make it easy, right? They didn't make it good. So it's good for these kids to have leverage, but of course we got to be sure we don't cross the line with that. And then another thing I just wanted to discuss um, is NIL, you know, um, and all this stuff is coming to play with this. And we have to remember NIL money is from boosters, right? Because I know we're talking about how the transfer portal is taking away some opportunities for high school kids to get scholarships, right? And rightly so it is. And some kids are going to have to consider playing down, for a year or two before getting that Division 1 opportunity where they want to go play for some, right? And so this is what Love the Game 24/7 is all about, is trying to help you navigate and understand how to get to where you want to be, young lady or young man, high school student athlete. And that's why we need to get you at the middle school age, right? As soon as possible. We still can work with you at the high school level, but we need you at the middle school age, right? So we can teach you how to navigate through this, how to navigate through um, the new environment of college athletic recruiting. Okay, and so I've been you know um, keeping a pulse on things. I listen to a lot of different people. There's a lot of other people out there that's just as smart, if not smarter than me, that I listen to and I respect um, in this recruiting world. And but I know I've lived it and been through it myself. I went through it with my son, and other young men that I've coached. So this is what, like I said, why I'm building this 10-week digital course, right? To walk you through, to help you get prepared, especially when you're young before you get to high school, so you can learn how to be that stud athlete that you probably have the ability to be. And for some that may not be that stud athlete, but you have a skill to where you still developing, right? And it may not develop for you until you get to college. Some of you may end up being a stud when you get to college, right? Because all of a sudden something may click in your head and you realize, man, I can really excel at this game of lacrosse, right? Or on the soccer field, right? Or softball or baseball. We're not just talking football or basketball, right? And so we have to understand that NIL money is booster funded. It's not coming from funds from the NCAA or funds from the college itself. This is boosters or businesses that love that university or supports that university in a lot of different ways that are coming up with NIL opportunities for some of the top players, that are attending these schools. Be it they're transfer kids or be it they're coming out of high school, right? And so, and be sure you'll say that you heard it here first with Coach Smith, who love the game 24/7, because there's a lot of things that they're trying to look at, trying to better the transfer portal and make sure that some of the high school kids still get an opportunity. And like I said, you can still get your opportunity, even though you may have to play down for a year or two. That's a great opportunity um, to learn the game, especially for some of you young men and young ladies who may still need some of that extra time, and the other thing is, if you are a Division I kid and you have to play down, then you got to have the mindset that you got to make sure you go dominate at that level that you're playing down. So when you get in the transfer portal to try to go up some levels, that you got great film, just like you had to have some film in high school. It doesn't stop. Film doesn't lie. And so never stop dreaming that if you want to go play at that top level, you just may have to go a different route. And it's okay, right? That's what we got to teach our kids. It's okay to go a different route than what you initially wanted to. I wanted to go Division I, and I had to go play Division II football, and I had opportunity to transfer Division I, right? But I didn't have anybody to teach me, like I'm going to teach you with this 10-week course to help you navigate, to help you decide and determine if you do have to play down a level, how to help you make it make sense, on whether you should transfer up. I felt like because of the Division II level where I was playing and didn't have a lot of knowledge, because of the conference that I played in, the North Central Conference, which was the best conference in Division II, with North Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota State, South Dakota, Mankato State, St. Augustine, St. Cloud State, UNO, Nebraska, Omaha. It was the best conference in Division II because the Division II championship always came out of our conference. Mostly it was North Dakota State, but there were times it was somebody else. But most often it was North Dakota State. But we always sent multiple teams to the Division II playoffs, and there were a lot of guys out of our conference getting pro opportunities, right? And because I didn't have this information, because of lack of knowledge, and I don't want you to have lack of knowledge, but I had lack of knowledge, right? I lost my father in ninth grade, single mom. My mom didn't have any money. My mindset was I didn't want to put any pressure on my mom. But man, with NIL and other opportunities, if I could transfer, if I had that and could have transferred because I had some NIL money that could have helped pay for my education or I earned the scholarship, I would have done it in a heartbeat because I knew I was a Division I type kid and I knew I had film that if I would have put myself in a transfer portal at the time, I had some film, right? Or before I put myself in there, I would have sent film, some valuable film, and could say, hey, we're the best Division II conference, right? And here's how I'm playing ball. I'm having some success as a freshman, as a sophomore. I could say that. And so you guys got to understand, just because your route might not go the way you want it, doesn't mean you, young man or young lady, can't play at another level or stay where you are and stay on that scholarship that's feeding you and taking care of you like it did for me, and not putting pressure on my mom to have to try to pay for me to transfer at a Division I school, you know. Now, I think it could have worked, but like I said, I didn't have the knowledge. Okay, I didn't have anybody like what I'm telling you right now because we have social media, we have experience, right? And if I'd have had somebody like what I'm sitting here telling you guys right now, I would have transferred. I would have took that chance, and I don't think you're wrong for taking that chance. But you got to make sure you weigh the costs before you do that. And it didn't hurt me that I stayed and played in the best conference in Division II in the nation because even teams in our conference in Division II beat some Division I schools, right? And so, um, and in that just solidified to me like, okay, it's still not a bad idea for me to stay here at this D2 school and keep my scholarship and have some success. And I still got the opportunity to play at the next level in the NFL. I think it might have been easier. Hey, I don't know. It might have been easier or better if I came from a Division I program. But in today's environment in college sports, it doesn't matter. If you can ball, they're going to find you. And they found us back then. They found my brother, my older brother, right? When he came out, he led the nation in Division II as a wide receiver. You know, he caught like 90 balls and well over 1,000 yards, and and was seen by a lot of scouts. And he got an opportunity, and I got an opportunity, to be a undrafted free agent and got an opportunity. I didn't have that long career like I had hoped to have. That's cool, but I fulfilled my dream of getting to the next level, to the NFL. I was able to fulfill that dream, you know, of at least getting the opportunity. That's all I could ask. And that's all some of you all are asking, or whatever sport it is that you're playing, male or female, the WNBA, or, uh, being on a pro tennis circuit, right? You got to just put in that work. And if you are that good, if you are that type of athlete, if you are her, or if you are him, you know, then wherever you play, you should be showing that, right? It should be seen. Okay. And so, like I said, I think with the NIL situation and that money not coming from the colleges or not coming from, from the NCAA, I'm my suggestion would be to increase the scholarships, maybe, 3 to 5 scholarships, and then make it specific that they have to take some high school kids and maybe one transfer portal kid or JUCO kid or two JUCO kids and 3 high school kids. This is just me talking, right? Get throwing out my stuff, and you can always say you heard it here first on Love the Game 24/7 with Coach Smith podcast. But there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of experts out there trying to figure out ways, because all this stuff is new on how to resolve where some high school kids have lost some opportunities. But my thing is, it's cool, guys, right? There's more than one way, right, to get to where you want to be. Always have a plan, right? But always be aware that that plan may get adjusted sometimes. And always look at certain things as not in a negative, but as a learning opportunity, right? So there's always these things, even though it don't happen the way you want, it's a learning opportunity. Are you going to woman up? Are you going to man up and put in the work and do what you have to do and take whatever opportunity that you have, scholarship that you have at whatever level it is? Whoever is showing you love, that's who you give love to, right? So those schools that are showing love at whatever level they are, that's who you give love to. That's who you give your attention to. And then you do your homework and see, okay, how can I go here to this program and make a difference? How can I go and put this program on the map, right? Because some of you got to look at too, even if you do get some NIL opportunities, how soon am I going to get on the field? How soon am I going to get on the court? Whether it be tennis or whatever, or doesn't matter. Track, you know, there's levels to every sport in college, right? You can be, you know, not the top female track athlete on your team, even though you're on scholarship, or you may not be on full scholarship, because it's all about your numbers and your times, right? That you have to run, right? That you got to show that you deserve to travel with the big boys and the big girls, right? And make an impact. Okay. And I was blessed to be able to make an impact at that Division II school. And we had talent at my Division II school. We had a lot of guys that could have played Division I. We had some guys that did play Division I and came down, and played at Morningside College in little old Sioux City, Iowa, right? But I loved every bit of it. And we had some straight ballers. Okay. And I played to get around some guys that helped make me better. They made me better. Okay. They made me a better player. And I helped make them a better player. Right. And so you gotta just keep your head on straight and not get all caught up in the NIL opportunities. That those things will work itself out. You focus on getting better every day and making an impact, right? So wherever you have to go play, at whatever level you have to go play, you make sure you make an impact. And if you make an impact and you decide, because I'm at a lower level and I want to try to move up, you got some film that can show how impactful you were in your sport, male or female, doesn't matter, right? And even while you're in high school, that's why I said we got to start our young people early in middle school. We got to start infusing them this in their mentality, to work, and I don't think we have quitters. I think we just have people who have lack of information, who have lack of knowledge, who just need encouragement, or who need to be taught some lessons on how to handle some things, right? On how to make the adjustment, So that's my deal on why, and how I think some things could be changed by the NCAA with this, because I don't remember the NCAA paying any of those guys for those video games that were those NCAA video games for baseball and basketball and football, all the different NCAA games that they had. I don't think they ever gave that money, any of that money, name, image, and likeness money to those college kids, right? So let's just be clear, right? NIL is not hurting the pockets of the colleges and universities. NIL is all being taken care of by boosters. You have to be clear of that stuff. I don't care at whatever level. It may be some NIL opportunities at Division II. If they got booster money to do it, they can do it. You know, that's just it's up to that program as to what they want to do. Everybody's able to do it. It's just whether or not they have boosters who are willing to raise money to give some NIL opportunities. At those different levels. But let's just remember, NIL is not hurting the NCAA pocket, right? It's not hurting the university's pocket. They're still making money off the name, image, and likeness of kids in ticket sales, in jersey sales, that don't have a kid's name on it, but everybody know who number 33 is. Everybody knew who number 27 was, right? Everybody knows number 15, Tim Tebow. Okay, so let's not act like we don't know who these guys are. So there's still money being made, okay? Because a lot of these name, image, and likeness opportunities, I've heard even Dion say it. It's not really name, image, and likeness opportunities. Name, image, and likeness opportunities is when they had those video games, right? Because I remember my son using that even when he was going through his recruiting. He was using that NCAA football, and even the baseball and the basketball stuff. He was, you know, mapping out his own recruiting dream, right? You could do all that stuff on the video games, and so a lot of those guys' names and images and all that stuff were on those college video games that they took away, right? So just understand and be clear that you understand how this thing works. That financially, NIL is not coming out of the university's pocket. It's not coming out of the NCAA's pocket. It's coming out of boosters' pockets, who now have the opportunity to help woo you young ladies and you young men to certain colleges and universities for whatever sport that you're excelling in. Okay, and so I want to teach you through our program, our 10-week digital course, to try to help you excel, right, and help you develop your game and help you understand how to take advantage of your opportunity to at least get your education paid for, right? Or get a good amount of it paid for through some sort of earning some sort of scholarship, and not turning your nose up to a lower level um, scholarship opportunity in your sport, right? We don't want to do that. We don't ever want to burn any bridges, okay? And it's the same goes for coaches. Doesn't matter. They don't need to burn any bridges either, because the atmosphere of college sports is definitely changing, right? And I think for the better in a lot of ways. Um, it's gonna work itself out. Um, some things may not be looking all pretty right now, but hey, I'm not feeling bad for any of these student athletes earning some of the money that they're able to earn, right? But you got to stay humble and hungry. Okay, just because you earn and have an opportunity to earn some of this money, and it's great, okay, and you can change your family's legacy, your family's history, and you got to be wise, right? You got to be um, use some common sense and get some knowledge, gain some and don't have lack of knowledge. Don't continue to have lack of knowledge and continue to have your family struggling because you didn't use some good common business sense about how to handle that money that you're making. Okay, we got to have some good sense. So that means you got to get around and get around some people that you trust, right? And let's stop sitting there saying, "Oh, they're just making money off me." Everybody's trying to make a little money. There's nothing wrong with people making some money as long as they're not going outside of what they should be going outside of, right? Um, there are certain percentages that everybody's trying to make, and I'm not against anybody trying to make money. I'm against people taking advantage of people. That's what I'm against, and I don't want anybody. I don't want to take it. I don't plan. I'm not taking advantage of anybody. Take advantage of me, and I'll help you. You know, it's no hurt off my back. I want to help you young people. Be able to get your education paid for, right, and enjoy just like I did the opportunity, just like I did to be able to play a sport and a game that you love and enjoy, and make some great relationships. That's what it's all about. Okay, and so, but yeah, so let's not get all caught up like, oh, they just want to make money. If you got an attitude where you're against somebody making some money, then something's wrong. You know, you need to be sure because you're trying to make money, and you're not wrong for trying to make money for it, right? Just don't let people take advantage of you or take all your money. You better know what's happening and know what's going on, know what you're signing, right? Um, be sure you know all these things. You should have somebody in your family, that you can trust. And if you are somebody that in your family you can trust, stay trustworthy. All right. Don't let your eyes get big and not be trustworthy. Stay trustworthy. Okay. But you guys got to stay humble and hungry. For I saw something reported about how um, the young man, the wide receiver at Ohio State, still has another year eligibility in Ohio. The boosters came up with about $20 million, from what I understand, about trying to have the young man stay. You know, um, and I mean that's he gave himself an opportunity to have to be able to have it like that, and I ain't mad at him. You know, I applaud him. You know, his daddy was a beast, right? Um, and so But he has an opportunity to probably make a lot more than that, being probably one of the top 3 picks in the NFL. You know, or at some point he'll be able to make more than that. You know, and so you can't always be taken by the money either, right? You got to weigh some things, okay? Like what is best for you and what's best for your family right now. Hey, I know I'm walking into he's walking into an opportunity, to go to the NFL, so I can let these guys that's behind me that still are back at Ohio State an opportunity to make that money, right? Because some of them may not get the opportunity to go at the next level like he's going. They may get there, but you know, hey, allow some of those guys. So you got to look at some things, right? You just can't just jump on and say, "Oh yeah, they offered me 20." You know, yeah, you can put a lot of things in place and get an insurance policy and all that, but the dream is what to get to the next level. Give yourself an opportunity to go to the next level, and he's given himself that opportunity to go to the next level. So there's no need for him to stay. You know, um, and so, but that's his decision. So whatever he wants to do, that's great. Hey, if you want to stay there and make 20 million and play college ball, and make history, that's great. That's that man's, decision, him and his family's decision, you know. So that's on him. But as I said, if they raise 20 million, that's $20 million that the boosters came up with. So that's why I said my plan, would be if I was the NCAA, is try to look at how to leverage some of this and bring it down some is to allow those schools, if they so choose, because they're still making money from TV and ticket sales and all this other stuff. That if they so choose, you give them the option to be able to add maybe 3 to 5 more scholarships. And it depends on that may be for football, basketball may not need that many, baseball, other sports may not need that many, but you give them an option, a certain range, and maybe you make it as where it has to be some high school athletes, or the most of those scholarships have to go to high school athletes, and then maybe you trickle down to JUCO or a or a transfer portal student, right? To try to help some of these high school kids get the opportunity, or some of these colleges who know they want that high school kid, but they don't have the option, they don't have the opportunity because they don't have the scholarship to be able to give. But that's just my thought. That's just me. And just know you heard it here first on Love the Game 24/7 with Coach Smith, right? It's recorded, and I'll be holding on to it, so nobody don't take credit for my suggestion. All right, I got proof, but that's just my thought, just me just sitting around thinking because I just love sports. But I don't want to talk your head off. I appreciate you guys joining me, but I just want to share that information about, Coach DeBoer and how he handled things. And for you coaches out there who may be listening to this live, or you may get the recording and see it later, hey, if you're going to push integrity on your student athletes, always remember you have to maintain that same thing that you're preaching, to your kids, to your young ladies and your young men. You got to live up to it as well. You got to be an example of it. And I'm telling you, that's where Love the Game 24/7 is coming in. I'm finalizing all these PowerPoints and PDFs to release this digital course here very soon. And I just want to let you guys know the 10-week digital course is going to empower you, student athlete, young man, young lady, to have an impact, a positive impact on your recruiting as you go through and use this 10-week course throughout your recruiting process. And as you grow up, also in train and making sure that you do the things that you need to do to be the best you in your sport, to give you the best opportunity at whatever level, okay, to get your education, you know, to help save your parents some money, right? That can maybe go towards their retirement. Um, or bless you with something. So hey, that's what Love the Game 24/7 and Coach Smith and GMB Sports Management Group, Garrett Blair, my man. Um, that's what we're all about. And so for you folks out there wondering about this 10-week digital course, is coming. I'm finalizing it, but it's going to be something that you don't want to miss. You want to be a partner with us and utilize these things. And like I said, you're going to have some other great things that are going to come along with purchasing this 10-week digital course. You're going to have opportunity to have one-on-one discussion live, with Coach Smith, um, and we're going to have some great podcasts and things. And there's going to be some things that are only going to be for the partners and not other folks. So you definitely want to be a partner because there's some things that only you'll get, And when you get this digital course, it's going to be yours, a living and breathing document that you can use. And we'll also have a group site, um, Facebook site, um, that we can have a group discussions, and you can meet other people who are going through some of the same things that you're going through and talk about this. And like I said, I don't put on camps at the moment. I may look at doing that, but I know there's some folks out there that are doing. Coach Derek Tatum, elite football. With the football, he does some great things out there in Georgia, and he travels around and takes kids all around. He's a great resource, great young brother that's doing some things and helping kids too. I don't have any problem plugging some other folks, because the more the merrier, to help you student athletes and parents learn, and not be with a lack of knowledge, right? So I'll plug him. I'll also plug my Before You Go Pro, my brother who does a lot of that. So you can follow him, follow him on IG and YouTube as well. Um, and I know I'll be partnering with those guys and doing some things, I'm sure, in the future. But yeah, so but definitely what we're doing, nobody is doing right now. But I'm putting it together. This 10-week digital course, man, it's going to be a great resource for you to use to help your student athlete be successful, right? And give you some real talk, some real options. Like I said, you have a plan, you write your plan down, and you follow your dream of wanting to accomplish what those things you want to accomplish. But just know it may not necessarily work out the way you want it to work out, but it can still work out, right? It can still work out for you. And that's what we're going to be teaching. And that's what we're going to help you with, from how you should be working out, how you can get bigger and stronger and faster, you know, in whatever it is that you need for your position in your sport. Um, and so I'm excited about it. And I hope you guys are excited about it. And I appreciate you joining me tonight. You know, let's get it. Let's get it on. I thank you for hustling over here with Coach Smith tonight, and joining the live podcast. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. 11:30 Eastern time. You know, let's get it on, guys, and let's get this knowledge, and let's help your young person, your young student athlete, your young lady, your young man grow up to be successful in that they desire to be in their sport. And don't ever tell them that they can't do something. Don't ever do that, because they can. And we want to give them the tool with this 10-week digital course and some other things that'll come along with it to make sure that they can do that. And also in pursuing that, it's going to open up doors and other things, right? That's what it's all about. It's going to open up doors. So you all have a great night, and sleep well until this weekend, and we'll talk, and and have some more great conversation. All right, y'all have a great night. Have a great evening.